All in. Hey. Good and warm. Right, well, we're right at the end of June. It's been a funny old month, really, to be fair. It's like it's been really patchy. Weather's been strange. Loads of ups and downs. Not a lot of heat. Lots of variable winds, some big winds, some big westerlies, like some big southwesterlies at the start of the month. Low pressure weather fronts. Some warm humid air. Loads and loads of naturals in the lake at the moment. Fish have been close to spawning for, like you say, 4 to 6 weeks really, but for whatever reason it's just not happened, and that's had a marked effect on the fishing. I would say probably, I don't know how many bites the lake's done over the month, but it ain't a great deal. Been lots of periods of time where we've seen a lot of shows, and there's been plenty of angling pressure on the lake. People have been on the fish, you know, some days like ridiculous, especially at the start of the month. You know, for the amount of fish in it, like 200-300 shows in an afternoon. Absolutely unreal, in epic conditions, and no bites have come. So they're clearly on the naturals a lot of the time at the moment. Obviously, once I realised they were heavily on the natural food sources and weren't so interested in the bait, obviously I came off the baited areas and started just getting around the pond again a bit more. Hence I come off my normal sort of rigs, sort of semi-stiff bottom bait rigs, wafter D rigs, and went back onto the stiff hinges, putting the bead up the lead core, pretty much casting around, just feeling for the softer drops in amongst where the naturals are living. Even put a zig out one day when they were so clearly in the upper layers, still didn't get a bite off that. So yeah, basically it was just a case of waiting for the right moments and the right conditions, and yeah, we've had a couple of little results this month. Certainly, like 2 weeks ago, I got the foot, you know, I've done 2 nights slightly deeper water with no action. Moved on the last night and seen a lot of fish on a particular area, quite a weedy area. You know, moved around there, whacked 3 hinges out there, got drops, soft drops on all of them, scattered some boilies around with a throwing stick, and had one pretty quickly. I think it was within something like an hour of getting the rod out, or the rods out, and that was that lovely 30-pound common. Put some more bait out for the evening, and then had a double take in the morning, like simultaneously, both bobbins have cracked the carbon at the same time. Unbelievable, never had that. I've had double takes where I've been playing one and another one's gone off or whatever, but this was like a simultaneous take on an area. I've just sim one. He's over my middle rod, so things are looking up. Yeah, and like got to the rods, like which ones you pick up, they're both melting. As I'm making the decision, the left hand rod slowed up and it's obviously buried itself in the weed, so hence I picked the middle rod up, played that in. One of the really nice, one of the golden commons, big overslung mouth, incredibly good condition carp, real welcome one. Got him in the net, got my second net in position, picked the other rod at the weeded fish, and I pumped in a great big ball of weed. The fish was gone, unfortunately. Whacked them 2 rods back out, only had about an hour left, and managed another small, like one of the cricket back commons, just slipped him back. So 4 takes in the last 12 hours of the trip. So just by moving about and reacting to what you're seeing. All that sitting about, waiting and watching fish that clearly aren't having it, you've got to get out of those zones sometimes and into new areas and try and make something happen, and that's what I did, and that worked on that particular time. Had a lot of bits and pieces, a lot of work on last week, meant that I couldn't get up for my normal trip early part of the week, so I wanted to get up. It was the end of the new moon, and there was a nice warm wind blowing up onto one of my baited areas, but I didn't have a lot of time. It was a quick trip, and that resulted in a blank. No good whatsoever. Ended up fishing both ends of the lake. Did the last night right back down the other end, and yeah, nothing, but I baited it, and so again got baiting at both ends, not a lot, just enough, and some salt. Been managing to keep 2 swims salted and baited, and sort of it's paid off over the spring. You know, I've had a really good spring, to be fair. And apart from this last month, where spring's sort of gone into summer, and it's all gone a little bit the other way, the whole lake's sort of gone really moody. It's been really good up until this point, but anyway, end of the month, got back up here for this last trip of the month, and again it was like a 4.5 hour trip out of Kent to get up here, and that was due to a number of circumstances. I think it was the red hot weekend, a lot of people had been to the coast, and hence the traffic going out of the county on that Sunday night was hell. Roadworks, road closures, stuff like that. So I got to the lake with probably 3/4 of an hour of daylight left. I found them straight away. They were there where I'd ended that last trip, down the bottom end of the lake. A couple of good ones as well on the surface. The water's like a bathtub at the moment. A couple of big backs bobbing about out there, and anyway, I just lowered the rods in onto my spots, marginal area, chucked the bed chair up at the top of the bank, and got some sleep. Got up at 4, area was dead. It was plainly obvious they'd vacated during the night. So I had a couple of cups of coffee, lifted the rods out, chucked them all in, everything in the van, and went looking, and there was a fresh wind forecast, and once that wind had picked up, they started showing. So got into my other baited plot at the top end of the lake, and they showed sporadically through the day. Like putting those 3 rods in sort of killed it for a little while, and then they started showing again late afternoon, and sort of half an hour before it got dark, I've received a take, and had this lovely real character, like short, wide. I mean, I'd say he was almost as wide as he was deep. Sort of scattered scaled mirror, little tail, melted fins, tiny little perchy dorsal, all weathered away, and an immaculate mouth. So he was £32.8. Got her back quite quick, because obviously they're close to spawning. They're obviously a little bit uncomfortable, I would imagine, and but they are having a little feed now. Well, there's just in another one, not too far away. Yeah, and then quite a quiet night. I was up at 10 to 4 this morning, had a take at 4 o'clock. Run me straight through 2 weed beds, big Canadian weed beds, buried in the weed on my inside margin, and despite my best efforts, half an hour or more trying to extract it, I managed to get the rig back, but the fish was gone. So a bit gutted about that, to be honest. don't want to be losing them now. They're big. Don't know what it was, didn't ever see it, so it's just a loss. But definitely got a chance of a few more. Feeling confident, seeing a few in the zone. So to take off 2 different rods. So the spot is, it's like 2 spots in an area that I've got out there, and the other rod, I've put it on a couple of different zones, but I can't get a bite off of it for whatever reason. That's hand placed as well, so should be good, but just hasn't produced anything yet. So that's a work in progress, that one. But anyway, if anything happens this morning, I'll catch up with you again a bit later. What's happening? Where's them carp, Jim? They're only about this morning. You wouldn't know, you've been fast asleep, you lazy little git. So I suppose I've got to look myself, have I? Looks that way. Oh, there we go. That is a better way to start the morning. So you can see, coming in a big ball of weed, massive bed of Canadian out there. So yeah, nice chunky old fella. Proper chunky little male, this one. Great big saucer-like pecs. Calm down. Coming in a great big ball of weed, so he's got a bit of energy. Sauce. Yeah. A pristine one. I'll show you the other side. Look at the sunlight. Still nice and early, no real warmth, but nice to keep them wet and a good slosh of water. There we go. Proper little chunk, isn't he? Another one of the characters. Well bent back, little tiny tail root. There we go. Good start to the morning, certainly after losing that one first light. Sort of makes up for it a bit. There we go. Super cool. Go back. Right, well, a bad morning just turned into a much better morning, really. Put one in the net, just seen him, so yeah, nice dumpy little character, another one of the odd uns in the lake, I suppose. But yeah, good to get a mirror again. Like in a lake with so many commons, like the mirrors are a right little bonus, really. It's a beautiful day. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's cool. We've got a northerly wind blowing. It's perfect for this area. And there's still a few about. I'd seen, it was 5 between the loss at first light and then getting that bite 3/4 of an hour ago. Just had a liner on the middle rod, which is sort of draped over that bed of Canadian. There's a little bank of Canadian between me and the spot. It's not really caused me any problems as such. It was the bigger bed on the inside line that I lost that fish in this morning. The only thing is it causing me a line lay problem? I mean, I'm sinking the braid from the leader back to the tip. I'm not just plunging the rod under the water and tightening up to sink the line. So I'm hoping I've got a bit of a line lay to it. But what I'm gonna do before I go home, I've got another night, so we've got a chance of something else occurring. But what I'm gonna do before I go home, before I bait up, I'm gonna get my little grappling lead, my little rake on the end of some 50-pound braid. What do you want? What? Is it breakfast time again? You're telling me. Neglected the dog, so he wants his breakfast. Yeah, I'm going to get a little grappling lead and I'm going to try and rake myself a little channel through to the spot just to get that line lay perfect. It'd be you know, work well done when it's finished. And I'll just keep on top of it after that, really. Just keep nipping it away. What? Oh, really? Right, I'm going to give the dog his breakfast. Old Jim's hungry, ain't ya? Yeah? Hungry? What? Okay, it's time. Right. Sorry, kid. Well, last night of the trip, last trip for June, and yeah, it's been alright. Managed to put a couple of fish in the net, but the sour taste is losing too. Never want to be doing that. That was bad news, but can't be helped. It's just one of those things. So yeah, got to take 4:30 this afternoon, and yeah, just hit a little bit of bone probably, but bird the hook point over and just bumped off after about 30 seconds. Such is life. But rods are all back out there, all rebaited after this morning's event. Seen a few fish in the area. They've been coming and going, but there was quite a good gathering this afternoon. It's gone a bit quiet now, but there's still signs of them being about. The birds have all gone. they don't want to be up here, so just tells me there's quite a lot of fish still sitting around these weed beds and what have you. So yeah, fingers crossed for the night ahead. Yeah, been an enjoyable trip, cracking weather, been really beautiful, warm, sunny days, but with a nice cooling breeze. That northerly's just taken the sting out of that heat, so it's been lovely. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, really good trip this week. So yeah, we will be back in July, as long as they haven't spawned. If they've spawned, I'm going to go elsewhere for a few weeks and leave them to it. But we'll see. But other than that, I am now going to go and enjoy a nice cold beer straight out of the cool box. I've had my dinner, so it's just going to be kick back, watch the sun go down, and have that anticipation for what might be. Hopefully by tomorrow morning we'll have one in the net. I'll let you know. Bless him.
I've never seen him spawn really.
Savages. Morning everybody. Right, where we at? Well, we're in July now, and got a bit of a love-hate relationship with July and carp angling. It's such a beautiful month, but generally the fish have spawned, they're out of condition, they're generally obviously lower in weight, but if you get your timing right and they've spawned early, you know, they do want a bit of food, and they do respond to it. Just a case of sort of picking the right lake at the right time, I suppose. And you know, last week, the water that I've been targeting through the spring, it was a real late spawner, this one, and it got to last week, and you know, the majority of the lakes around the country that I'd heard of, that they'd already done it. They'd already gone, you know, 2 or 3 times, some of them at that point, and these ones just hanging it out, and you know, they hung it out right to the last minute. And as I say, on that last trip, at the very start of July, the last morning, it's around, I suppose I started getting the odd liner about 1 o'clock in the morning, and by 3:30 I'd wound all the rods in, and they were going for it. I ended up staying on the pit till about 11 o'clock that morning, just watching them. It's quite a magical event, to be perfectly honest. It's quite a pleasure to watch. And you get to see some of the odd ones that you might not normally see throughout the year, the rarer ones, at close quarters quite often. So it's quite nice to be there at the lake at that time, you know, and watch them go through that big natural event that they build up to every year. So yeah, I hung around till about 11, did a bit of footage. You'll see a bit of that on the vlog. And then I had a sort of big decision to make. Where was I going to go? What was I going to do? Obviously, I like to give them a good rest once they've got that spawning out of the way. Although I will bait the lake, I don't want to be fishing for them when they're lacking in energy and that natural vavavoom that they've normally got, you know. Just like to give them a recovery period, if you like, and let them get over it. But we'll see how long that's going to be. But in the meantime, like I sort of had a few places in mind that I wouldn't mind going and, you know, dropping back on, places that I sort of fish on and off over the years. And this is one of them that we came to on Monday afternoon. And yeah, it was incredibly quiet. The pit's really weedy, mega weedy. They spawned 6-8 weeks ago. I think they've done it a couple of times. I'm not that in touch with the place, to be perfectly honest, but I knew that they'd done it. I knew a few of the better fish had come out at big spawned out weights, or low spawned out weights, I would have to say. So in that period of time, they've obviously got a bit of their energy back. They're up for a feed. They want a bit of food, and yeah, I thought I'd come up here. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do. This trip's gone really well, to be fair. I've caught a few fish out of here in the past, but there's a good handful of real good-looking carp, real special ones that I'd love to have a meeting with one day. And so I might do a few weeks on here. I've got another lake that I haven't even been to this year. It's no publicity water, so I won't be able to film on there, but I might just have like a couple of little holiday trips, a couple of little, you know, treat trips really, up there, and do a little bit of fishing back at home, which I keep meaning to do, on a couple of local waters, have a meet up with a few old friends and whatnot. So that's the sort of general plan. So what happened this trip? So I got here, nobody here, had a good walk round, see a fish show straight away in the margins of a swim. I did a couple of hours in there with no result, and very quickly afterwards, through my binoculars, I saw some fish further up towards the sort of shallow end of the lake, if you like. And I skipped the 2 rods in that I'd flicked out, and shot up this top end, and immediately I found a group of fish that had bobbed up to the surface, 2 big beds of floating weed, and there was a good group of carp milling around, and the odd one like bow waving around on a bit of shallow ground. So quite a good gathering of fish in the area. It's a swim that I'd fished a couple of times in the past. Caught a lot of tench out of here in the past, but no carp from this particular swim. So with that gathering there, it was a no-brainer really to make a start. So got the leading rod out. Whilst they were pugged up in the weed and out to the right of the swim, I sort of had a little feel around. This lake, notorious for being pretty spotty, like little dinner plates. It's mega weedy, loads and loads of silkweed covering vast sections of the bottom, and then huge beds of eelgrass, Canadian, hornwort. There's everything in here, and like you can get drops in places, but you've got huge thick mats of that silkweed on the bottom, and like the presentation's really poor. They don't necessarily always dig it out and feed on it voraciously. They have very particular places they like to feed on, so it's imperative that you find the very best bits. And obviously I haven't been here, I hadn't set foot on here, to be honest, since late March. So it's changed dramatically. So it took a little while, but there's no point. You can't chuck and chance on a water like this. And yeah, I could have chod fished it, some of the areas, but I wanted to get it absolutely pinpoint. So I systematically worked the swim from sort of 9 o'clock round to 3 o'clock in a big arc, at various sort of clips on the rod. Every sort of 5 yards I'd recast, get, you know, to map the swim out, if you like. It's the best way of doing it. Start off at range and then work your way closer until you found out exactly what you need to know about the swim. Oi, oi. I think it's a bit of drifting weed, to be fair. Yeah, and I found like one mega promising spot. It's clearly a little area, silkweed, bit of eelgrass, but there were 2 nice firm drops in amongst it, little glides. So that was one rod sorted, and I found another spot way round to the right, a siltier bowl, little bowled out area. Had a couple of little firmer drops within the zone, so that was the second rod. And the third rod I ended up fishing up against the side of a weed on a much dirtier area, and that one I just fished a high pop up on a long soft boom and scattered a few boilies around that zone. The other 2, I give it a big hit of bait, like spomming. I don't do a lot of spomming, but these tiny little areas, like, I just thought that's the way forward with that type of fishing. Little short rigs and a spom mix of like crumbed boilie, 12 millers, corn, maples, bit of party blend. Mainly bigger items, just a handful of the party blend, just to get them little seeds and bits into the dirt, get them grubbing about. And anyway, yeah, first morning, I think it was about 10 to 4, I had the first bite. That came off that further rod. Got it in the net. As you see, it was a nice common, got a nice shape to it and whatnot. Set the camera gear up. Once I got her out of the water, I recognised her. It was one of the ones that I'd caught in March. Spawned out, now a mid-20. Lovely old carp, really quite distinctive for a common. Got these really weird little eyes, so a nice character. It's 4:30, first morning. Managed to get on a few yesterday and give them a whole bucket of bait. As you can see, they've spawned out, and this is a cracking old common, this one, real corker. And he paid me a visit first thing this morning, had him about 20 minutes ago, and yeah, look at him. Lovely one. But so I didn't really recognise her till I got her on the bank, but you got a bit of footage there of her, and got her back quickly. So the water's like a bathtub at the moment, so you've got to look after them. Anyway, got that rod back out there, got a sweet drop straight away. See a couple of fish show over the zone, and it was about 3 hours later, it's around about 7:30 I think, I received a second bite. Ripped a lot of line off me off a tight clutch quite quickly. I knew it was a much better fish, very heavy, weeded me twice. I'm fishing the braided main line, so I've got really good direct contact with the fish most of the time. Can feel exactly what's going on, and when they do weed themselves, you can generally get them out quite easily. And that was the case. And then I had must have been 5 or 8 minutes under the rod tip, big erupting boils and oily swirls as this fish has surged away up and down the deep margins and whatnot. Never really got a good view of it until right at the last minute, and I see it was a mirror. I had a funny feeling while I was playing it that it might have been the one that I'd really come here for, a big old common. But I see the mirror scales, and I thought, and it was a long fish, really long. Didn't really recognise it, to be honest with you. Anyway, I managed to bundle it into the net with a big ball of weed, eelgrass all draped over the line and the leader and what have you. And I've like parted all this weed and had a look in, and it just kept getting longer and longer and longer. Lovely little linear line of scales both sides down by the tail root. Big dark slate grey back, mega fish. Anyway, got a mate over to do me some shots and what have you, and yeah, one of the A-team, so well happy with that. 2 bites on the first morning. And funnily enough, we just put her back and stood at the top of the bank having a look across the pond, and another big and real big black fish showed straight over the top of the spot. And I was rubbing my hands together thinking, like, it could be a hat trick here this morning, you never know. But I think it was a bit of a long shot, like the morning faded away and I ended up catching up on a bit of sleep in the afternoon. Got back up about 3, rebaited that spot. Obviously after having 2 bites, there was obviously other fish around the area. I think I got cleaned out pretty much. So I topped the spot back up. Not a big hit this time, a little bit less, because obviously, you know, when you've got those smaller food items, they do get pushed around and buried, what have you. And I didn't want to. I had 1 night left. I didn't want to overfeed it. So I think I put 12 spoms out onto that spot, which is still quite a lot of food. But you know, when they're having it, and they can clear that out quite quick. Another beautiful flat calm night, really warm. That's a bit of drifting weed, and that's the lovely thing about July. Big sunsets, big sunrises, warm nights where you're just laying on top of the bag. You know, I got absolutely mullered the first evening getting sorted out by the mozzies, so I made sure I threw the old mosquito net over the brolly. And once you get sort of tucked up, I had a nice cold beer out of the cool box, and yeah, just being able to lay on the bed looking out over the surface of the pond, seeing the odd fish top, you know, not getting battered by the cold winds, rain, you know, there's a certain serene beauty about high summer that you know, we always look forward to. And it might not be the best carp angling conditions or feeding conditions, it might not be the most comfortable during the day if you're sat out in 25+ degrees, but it's magic. It's the English summer, and it's there to be embraced. So, you know, if you pick the right waters, it can be really enjoyable as well. And I'm certainly fishing for these carp. These are the carp I'm fishing for their looks, not necessarily for the size. I'm not targeting one, you know, like a giant carp, a big fat mirror or whatever. These are for looks, these ones. And there's an element of real beauty in fishing for those carp. It's not about, it's the hunt is for something special, slightly rare maybe, super scaly, or a really cool shape. And you're taking away that element of, you know, everyone's clamouring for a shot at the big target and all that sort of nonsense. This feels more pure in a way. I don't know, that might sound a bit cliche, but it's just nice to have the rods out and just be completely comfortable and happy with your lot. And there's no doubt in my mind that fishing for looks these days is more and more important in my own angling. You know, how few times maybe those carp have been touched by human hands, as opposed to big circuit water big uns. Really, I think, you know, these days this sort of angling is probably more my cup of tea. So yeah, really enjoyed this trip anyway. Going to be back here next week. Probably, I'd imagine I'll probably drop on and off of here till August, when I'll go back to the main water and get all the prep work done ready for the autumn, and see where we go from there. So there we go. There's a bit of a catch up. Oh right, yeah, this morning. So yeah, obviously this morning, again, that first bite to that 4 o'clock bite time. I think it was 10 past 4. This one, middle rod's rattled off, and not much of a battle out of this one, but it was a nice little plump, low 20-pound common. Again, another nice character, lovely dark old fish, and we've plopped him back and got the rod back out on the spot. And I have seen a few out in the zone, but no more bites. It's now nearly midday. I've got to get off. I've got a lot to do tomorrow. I need to get back home, prep the kit back up, get everything recharged, restocked, get the new bait out the freezer ready for next week, all start that process rolling again. It's never ending. And then, because I've got a lot to do tomorrow, various different things, weekends all planned out, and hopefully be back on Monday for the moon. Got a big new moon phase coming in. Always exciting, whatever time of year, to me anyway, because I know those big and on certain lakes, the big ones are always vulnerable, the better fish. So I always try and coincide at least a few of my trips throughout the year. The key phases, the key months of the year, I'll move heaven and earth to get those trips in on full moons and new moons. Certainly always look forward to the harvest moon phase. September's always been kind to me. So's August, funnily enough. You know, we'll talk about August in the next big vlog, because that'll be coming up. And you know, I'll probably sit there one evening and give you a few stories of some of my key captures that have come in August. My two biggest carp. That's 2-tone at a record weight back in August 2008, and then the Burfield Common, August 2012. Wow, it feels like a long time ago now. So yeah, we'll have a little look at those captures and how I approach my August angling. But we've got July to get through first, so hopefully we'll have a few more carp on the bank. Anyway, catch you soon.